Good evening and welcome this evening. Thank you all for joining us for the Getting Ready for School webinar. I'm just going to share screen. So this is our Getting Ready for School webinar, And tonight is all about helping families to help their children be ready for school. So thank you for joining us and sharing your time with us this evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging the land on which we all meet this evening and to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. So thanks again for joining us. I will go through some housekeeping for this evening. Firstly, to let you all know that the presentation will be recorded and it will be shared with families that were interested in this evening but were unable to join us. So that link will be made available as well for yourselves if you want to watch a recording of the session at a later time. There is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to put any comments, especially those not necessarily related to the webinar. So maybe some technical difficulties that you might be having in the chat function. However, with the question and answer, the Q&A function, please feel free to put any questions that may arise in the Q&A chat that's available at the bottom of your screen. Our panelists will be monitoring those questions and they will try and answer them as the night progresses. I will also hope to keep time for the end of the webinar to answer any questions that may not have been answered throughout the evening. Also, further to that, if questions are still unanswered at the end of the evening, we will be following up after the webinar. And you also have the opportunity to contact either myself, Belinda, or any of the panelists to find out any further information or to ask them any questions that weren't answered this evening. So that's using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I will be running a poll this evening as well. So I will do that shortly. There will be two. There will be one question at the start of the evening and there will be two questions at the end of the evening. So the poll is mainly for three reasons. It's to give us an idea on how you're feeling as a family at the moment in relation to transition to school. It'll also be to consider ways of how we can support families throughout this process of transition to school. So how you're feeling, how we can support you, and then finally to find out what else you might need to know in order to keep being supported. So we would really appreciate you answering the questions in the poll that I will be running shortly. There will also be a handout that will be summarising tonight's presentation, and that will be sent out to you after the webinar as well. We're very fortunate that this activity is funded by the Department of Education New South Wales through the Start Strong pathways. Early Ed do have some other services that are available to the community through the Start Strong pathway, and you can find out more about those services on the Early Ed website on our Start Strong Learn Through Play page. And the address for that link is there on your screen, earlyed.com.au/startstrongplay. So please feel free to look at that and see if any of that could be helpful to you as well. Just so you know, some of these free services do include our Learn to Play, Play to Learn, and they are activities that can be done at home, which are low cost or no cost. There is also our Active Play, Active Learning information, and that is about using our outdoor environment and natural parks that are also for free in a learning, fun way with your family. The My Time playgroup is currently being run online, and it's to support parents of children with disabilities. We also have a Ready to Learn with Story Time, which is run every Thursday. So if that is something you are also interested in, you do need to register for that to get the link. And then finally, through the Start Strong pathways, we do have our Cubby House toy library. At the moment, access to that is all online, but otherwise it is based at Forestville. So on that note, I am going to run the first question for this evening. So it would be wonderful if you could kindly answer the question on your screen, which is rate how confident you feel about knowing what is required to support your child to transition to school. So how confident you're feeling about knowing what is required. We're seeing the results come up as you put them in, so that's wonderful in knowing where you're all sitting at the start of the evening. Mostly are sitting at the somewhat confident. That's great. Thank you all for sharing. I've just entered that poll. So the purpose of tonight's session is to understand what transitions can look like under a COVID-19 impacted environment. It's also to receive up-to-date advice and guidelines from the school systems. It looks like the internet had cut me off temporarily. Is that right? I will go back to share screen. And we've got some people saying that they could not submit the answer to the poll. Okay, now it's better. Thank you. We'll try and continue. So to receive...
Linda, the second question wasn't there on the poll.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and follow that up throughout the night while the panellists are presenting. Thank you for letting me know, and I'm sorry for that hiccup. We hope that you can receive up-to-date advice and guidelines from the school systems that are here with us this evening on how to support transition to school. And the other final purpose is to know that supports are available and how to access these as well. The main thing that we want in the transition to school process is to have children ready for transitioning to school and starting that new life, that new journey. But for children to be ready, we need an overall ready community. We need our family to be ready, the schools to be ready to accept the child, the early childhood services to be ready to support family and children in that process, and any other members of the community, whether it be formal or informal supports, to be ready as well. All of this working together makes our children ready. And while there is a focus on academic skills for many, we do encourage to look beyond the reading, writing, numeracy skills and look at the child as a whole. So their social skills, emotional skills, their fine motor and gross motor skills, all of that will be coming into play and will be discussed tonight by the panellists. Here are some websites that you can access further information on. Raising Children Network, Reimagine Australia, which used to be known as the Early Childhood Intervention Australia website. They are now Reimagine. The Inclusion Project has great information about advocacy of children with disabilities and inclusion as a whole for the K to 12 age group. So that can also give you further information. But there's also the Early Childhood Australia blog and resources, and this particular link gives specific support and information on the transition to school process as well. So where else can you access local supports? That can also be done through your child's long daycare or preschool setting if they're enrolled in a long daycare or preschool service. It can be done through your ECEI. So that's the Early Childhood Early Intervention pathway if your if your children are accessing NDIS. You can also get information from community health services. You might be involved with community services that could be Start Strong funded, and they also have access to information and support, and your local school will also have information that you can access. So we have a wonderful panel of speakers tonight, and I'm very excited to introduce them. The panelists will go through their information and they will explain further their role and what they will be sharing with you this evening. But from the Association of Independent Schools, we will have Sue Cairns. From the Catholic Education Office, we will have Jane Hayden. From the Department of Education, we will have Dr. Shona Shu, Wendy Griffith and Claire O'Neill. Some will be presenting and some will be watching the chat. And from Terry Hills Public School, we have Adrienne Bruce and Catherine Wiles. So thank you for our panellists for presenting this evening. So I'm going to stop share. And our first presenter this evening will be Sue. There you are, Sue. I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I do hope you'll be able to hear and that we don't have continued issues. I'm just going to share my screen. And is it happening? So welcome and thank you, Early Ed and Belinda, Kylie, Rosemary for putting on this evening. It's so understanding of what they can do in terms of assisting their little person to transition to school effectively and well. It's a big step in every little person's life. And as a parent myself, I certainly still remember those early days and how challenging it could be. So I'm sure this evening you'll get lots of hints and tips from all the panellists tonight about things that you can do that will make that transition process not just easier for your little person, but easier for yourself as well. I want to just talk a little bit about independent schools so that you have a clear understanding of what an independent school is. All independent schools are governed by the same legislation as every other school in New South Wales. They are all governed by or come under what they call the NESA framework, and that's the Education and Standards Authority in New South Wales. And every school, every independent school must be registered, so they have to meet certain criteria through NESA in order to be registered. Each school has its own sets of policies and procedures, and they run quite differently to each other. Some or most independent schools are accountable to a school board, and the board are often comprised of members of the school community. Every school, as I said, does have individual school policies, and the services they offer and the resources they offer vary widely. Some schools are able to offer quite amazing resources in terms of facilities and grounds, whereas the majority of our independent schools are quite small, and they work to provide the resources that you might see when you go there. So one of the things you need to find out when you're enrolling in an independent school is exactly what the resources are that that particular school offers. There's a very wide range of schools within the independent sector in terms of the philosophy of the school or the educational focus or style. So it may be that the school follows akin to Montessori, it may be that they have a particular religious affiliation. So within the independent sector, you'll find Jewish schools, Christian schools, Islamic schools. We have Hare Krishna schools, so a wide variety of faiths are represented within the independent sector. And then there are schools that provide variety within that particular type of school. Most independent schools offer inclusive learning environments. So if your child does have some additional needs, they're not necessarily going to have a special class in primary school within that independent school. There's a variety of programs that these schools have on offer, and there are some special schools, such as Giant Steps or St Gabriel's, or the Aspect schools for children with autism. So there are some specialist schools within the independent sector as well. There are independent schools across New South Wales, from our furthest western reaches right up into the northwest, places like Moree, and right down into the south. These independent schools really thrive on strong parental involvement, as does every school in every sector. Schools want you to be involved in your child's education. And there is often a very close link between the school and their community. For example, a faith-based school might have very strong affiliate, big part of things that happen within the school. If you want to find an independent school, you can go to the AIS website that you see at the bottom of your screen. And you can see that you click on a location, a finder. You can decide whether you want a boys' school or a co-ed school, in your area, if you want a particular religion, and a list of schools in that area will pop up for you. Sorry. I forgot that did all those little fancy tricks. I'm from the Association of Independent Schools, so I'm a consultant with the AIS. We are there only as an advisory body. We do not dictate to schools what they should do, but we do offer a wide range of services, and we are, in normal circumstances, visiting schools on a regular basis, providing support to the executive of the school boards, in teachers, and assisting other agencies who may be working within that school context. We do a lot of professional learning through the Association of Independent Schools for all those independent schools. We assist them with making adjustments, or if they're wanting to do assessment and reporting. So we provide lots of support around classroom practice, early literacy programs, early numeracy programs, to name just a few. If you wish to enrol in an independent school, it's important that you contact the school directly and ask to speak to the principal. Most schools will have a very clear enrolment process, so you do need to find out what that process is, and usually you would have an appointment with the principal or perhaps the bursar to discuss the enrolment of your child with that school. Transition processes vary a great deal. I'm just going to try and move my black screen so I can see. Transition processes vary from school to school, but will include every school will have a transition process for all children. If a child has additional needs, there's often extra visits that are made in order to build those very strong interpersonal relationships. But of course, COVID has put a bit of a halt or a bit of uncertainty around what that process may look like, or what orientation may look like for children going into kindergarten for next year. So each school will have an individual process, but some of the things that were done last year during COVID, I'm sure will be renewed. And there were things like schools prepared videos of teachers talking to the children about what kindergarten was going to be like and introducing themselves. There might be school story videos or booklets that were sent home for families to share with their pre-kindy children right up until the day they start school next year. And other schools provided lots of photographs of the events and activities that occurred at the school. So again, it's important that you discuss with your specific school what are the processes they are planning to use to orient children to school. And of course, there'll probably be a plan A and a plan B, as we are still so uncertain about where COVID is going in our state. As a parent, be very open and honest with your school. If you have a child with any additional needs, please provide current, up-to-date reports from your early intervention team, any psychologists or speech pathologists. The more the school knows, the more they will be able to assist your little person. You need to think about whether your child has additional needs or not. How can I work collaboratively with the school? How can the school best support me and my child? How can I develop a really good relationship with the school so that going forward, I know how I can assist my child at every stage, whether it's following a home reading program or assisting with some other challenges that the little person may have. It's good to provide lots of ideas, again, whether your child has additional needs or not. Make sure you've got lots of pictures of the school. Go to the website with your child, show them the photos of the school and the map of where the school is and where different activities are. You can even print it off and colour code it so the child knows green is where my classroom is and orange is the school gate where I have to wait for mum in the afternoon. And of course, having a visual schedule of what the day is going to look like will really get you all off to a good start if you have it very clearly defined that in the morning we get up, we have breakfast, we get dressed, we pack our bag. Just some pictures of that will really help everybody manage those morning transitions very smoothly. So lots of those daily checklists. Make sure too, kindergarten's a big step for little people. So make sure you have organised some downtime when they get home. It's important that they have time to rest and get some energy back. Sometimes you'll find children are very irritable when they get home, especially in term 1 and 2. They're exhausted. It's a lot going on. There's preschool or childcare, they may have had perhaps 50 children, and at school they may have hundreds. So then there's all those interactions that they have to deal with, which can be really, really challenging. So make sure they have lots of good quality downtime, and if there is a meltdown, just helping them get through that. Just want to move on. I think too that a profile of this is who my little person is, and where they can talk about the things that they do best, and develop all those little skills. As Belinda was saying, it's not just about literacy and numeracy, it's all the social skills and the self-help skills. Have a lunchbox that they can easily open. Make sure their shoes are easy for them to put on and off and do up, that they can dress themselves with their basic school clothes, that they know what their uniform is and they feel comfortable in their uniform because they've had lots of practice tries during the Christmas break, so that they really feel good about being in their uniform when they get to school. I think too, thinking carefully about how school is so different to preschool. Be aware that for you as well, there's a lot of jargon, to put it one way, within every school. So they'll people be talking about the KLAs or the key learning areas. So have an understanding of the different ways in which curriculum is spoken about, and have a clarity around what the school day does look like and what will independence look like for your little person when they're at school. And it's also important too that if you're not happy about something, that you have a really good idea of what to do about it. You know who to go to at the school. Usually it's your classroom teacher who's the very best port of call. There are lots of great websites, and Belinda's already spoken about some of these. Raisingchildren.net.au is a wonderful site for all children. If your child does have additional needs, the Imagine site, which is about perhaps a sensory disability, the Next Sense, Down syndrome, there's the Down Syndrome Association of Australia. So all these sites provide information for families and specific information about transitioning to school. If you have any questions about anything about transitioning to an independent school, or questions that you'd like answered, you are very free to contact the Student Services team at AIS. You just ring that number, ask for a member of the Student Services team, and one of us will get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you for having me this evening, and enjoy the rest of your presentations.
Thank you so much, Sue, for that valuable information, and I'm really hoping people can hear. Again, I'm very sorry for the technical difficulties. It's showing full reception, so I'm not too sure exactly what's going on. But next up, we do have Jane from the Catholic Education Parramatta Diocese. So I will share Jane's screen and kindly ask her to start her presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Belinda, and welcome to everyone. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Jane Hayden. My role is the Transition Coordinator, and I actually work in the Diocese of Parramatta, so Catholic Education Diocese of Parramatta. So I will be referring to you shortly to the Catholic Schools New South Wales website, but I just wanted to give you that I'm actually from one particular diocese and not from all. I don't represent all of the Catholic education dioceses. So I just want to quickly do an acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge the Darug people, who are the traditional custodians of this land here in Western Sydney, which is where I am from, people who have loved and cared for this land for thousands of years. I would also like to pay respect to the elders of the Darug Nation, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. So thank you. So next slide, thanks, Linda. So this is the website I was referring to get any further information around any Catholic education schools that you're particularly looking for, is the Catholic Schools New South Wales website, which is there on the screen. And the backslash on there, which is the Foundations for Learning, is a part of the link has some really great ideas for transition, and particularly in the area of early learning. So I will talk a lot of tonight about those particular ideas of what you can do at home, but it's got some really great resources on there for you guys, for your families to go back and actually refer to them later on. I won't be mentioning too much around sort of like what Sue has mentioned. I'm going at a very different angle from some of the other presenters tonight, and I am more focusing on what you can do at home with your little one ready for school. So, so hopefully that you will find that quite helpful. That will be part of my presentation as we go on. But I suppose I just want to briefly start. If you're looking for your local Catholic school, head to the Catholic Schools New South Wales website and you can find your local school there. And I think it's really important to contact your local Catholic school now if that's the school that you're interested in enrolling your child at, if you haven't already done so. There are quite a few in the Catholic Diocese of Parramatta that have already full and got some waiting lists ready to go. So, yeah, if that's the way that you're looking for your little one, I'd start that journey now. Like Sue mentioned, it's really important that you have that open and honest communication from the start as well. When you first start talking to the school about your child's needs, and this really does help for a successful transition and setting your little one up for success from day one. And I know that, like what Sue said, with COVID-19, all transition to school programs, particularly kindergarten orientations, they're sort of all up in the air at the moment. But it is important, whatever programs, transition to school programs that your Catholic school does run, please participate in them with your children, with your child. It really does help, again, with that successful transition next year. Some other things to become familiar with your child's chosen school is, if you can walk past it and talk about the school, and drive past it if you can, and make a note of where it is. Talk about the new school with your child, and all the exciting things that they can expect. I think the more excited and energy that the child gets from their mum or dad or their carer, the more excited they are about starting school. So so I'm just going to go now about what some things you can do at home will be. So thanks, Belinda. Next slide. Belinda, are you there? Can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. Well done. So my big thing is with the little ones coming to kindergarten is the importance of play and play-based learning. I love this quote from Albert Einstein, is that play is the highest form of research, because, the children really do make sense of the world as they engage with the people and the resources and through play. And at home, engaging with your child through play is probably one of the best ways to prepare them for school. I love the link that Belinda did speak about earlier, the Start Strong and Learn to Play website. That obviously has some really great ideas as well. There's lots of other websites you can access as well. So that's a really good starting point. So next slide.
Sorry, Jane, I am clicking, but it seems to be taking a while to click over for you to see.
No problem, thank you. These are just some of the importance of play I'll go through. So through play, children learn to regulate their emotions. That's a really big one for kindergarten when they start school, to know that. It helps them be creative. It helps build resilience. Helps children to cooperate and also to collaborate with others. It helps to solve problems. And the big one is, through play, is developing their language, social skills and communication with others. Play also encourages children to move more, develop those physical skills, and generally overall increase their confidence, which again is going to help with success at school. Next slide, thanks. Okay, so these are just some really simple play ideas at home. Like Belinda said, sharing that previous website with the Start Strong, and also on the Catholic Schools New South Wales website, there's some great ideas for you to do at home as well. But here is just a list of a couple of things. Build with blocks or Lego. Use those words of add in an extra one. You can count them. Are they balanced? Do you need some to be in front or behind, or how high can we go? Rolling, squeezing and manipulating Play-Doh, it helps strengthen those little fine motor muscles to help ready to be able to hold pencils and to pre-writing skills. Dress ups with a range of different resources to use, not just your standard Superman or Spider-Man or fairy dresses, but really let them get into your cupboards and dress up with, your jackets and your scarves and your hats, and that really helps with creativity and imagination. Playing some simple board games together, because that really helps strengthen the idea of turn taking and waiting for their turn and who's next, who's before. So that's really a really important one for children. Sandpit play is another great one. Drawing and cutting. Reading a book. Reading a book is so important to start as you can. Of your reading books to your children every single day for the physical being and for creativity as well. this one, building a cubby house with bed sheets, whatever you've got around the house, with towels, with pegs, chairs, really helps them with their problem solving skills as well. This is a great one. Having a tea party, playing simple ball games outside. So again, it's about coordination, turn taking. There's also, and doing some simple painting. So these are all some really simple play ideas that you can do at home. That's definitely going to help develop things like I mentioned, turn taking, sparking imagination and creativity, developing those pre-literacy skills, just to name a few. So next slide, thanks. Okay, I think Sue did mention some of this before about establishing some really good daily routines. It's really important for them to predict what's coming up next. So parents, you can create some really simple visual pictures for a morning routine, an afternoon routine. These can be as simple as photos of your children completing tasks like eating breakfast, then brushing their teeth, then packing their school bag, and then leaving the house. You could have a weekly schedule as well, so you know exactly what's happening each day of the week, particularly if there's library day or sports day, so your children don't get anxious about what's coming up next. They know it's very clearly there in visuals for them. If there are any changes to your routine, really let your child know in advance so they can really be prepared for those changes that happen. This is a really important one, particularly for little kindies starting school. Try to stick to as much of a regular time for going to bed each day and waking. We've lost Linda, I think.
Jane, did you have more to share with us?
I think I was just going to talk about independence and developing that, but
feel free if you can talk from your slides if you'd like to finish off. Yeah, you just continue, Jane. We can't see at the moment, obviously, but if you could just continue, that'd be helpful.
Have you got the slides there or no?
I don't, but if we get Belinda back, so
that's all right. I'll talk from my slides. I've got.
Great, thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Yeah,
I can hear.
Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to be really quick. I'm just finishing up now, a few more minutes, just about encouraging independence. This is a big one. Practice wearing their school uniform around the house, in the weeks before they actually start, ensuring they know how to adjust their uniform, be able to pull their pants up, take off their jumpers and shoes and hats. Practice using the lunchbox as well. Do they know how to open it? Do they know how to select the food out of their lunchbox for different break times? Another fun thing to do as a family is have a little picnic in the backyard or in the living room on the floor and practice using their lunchboxes. Talk about the school rules and expectations and things like putting your hand up and being able to ask to go to the toilet. There's some really great things to do with developing that independence. Practice packing their own school bag so they know how to can fit all their belongings in, even carrying their school bag as well, because they can be quite heavy and they're not used to that. Also important to identify your own belongings and what's being responsible for them. Things like going to the toilet on their own and being able to, wash their hands independently or even close the cubicle doors. That's really important. And things as practice sitting on the floor, that can be part of your play. Pretend schools when you're at home, and putting their hands up or reading the book, and they can be the teacher as well because they love doing that sort of thing. And if they can start practicing writing their name or even at least identifying their name, that's another great thing. So sorry, and I hope that's been really helpful. But yeah, definitely refer to the Catholic Schools New South Wales website for further information or your local school to contact. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane. That's really wonderful. Sorry about the problems that we've had there. So our next panellists tonight are going to be from the DET. So Shona, are you going to start that session? Or?
Yes, we're ready to Go.
Great, thank you.
You have our slides?
I don't.
Okay,
I'm
think
hoping
Belinda
Belinda has. Yeah, that's
Like
right.
she does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can share from home if there's any difficulties.
Yeah.
So I think we're good to go. Okay, I'll just start straight away. Here we go. I'd like to welcome you all tonight. And first, can I just start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the many lands upon which we're meeting tonight. There's many of us here. I come from the Darug Gurungai people up in the Hornsby area, and I recognise that there will be people from all over Sydney attending tonight, and we want you to feel welcome. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to extend that respect to any other Aboriginal persons who might be present tonight. Tonight, my name is Shona Shu. I'll be presenting along with Claire O'Neill. Claire, you might like to say hello.
Hi, my name is Claire O'Neill. I'm a Learning Wellbeing Officer for the Department of Education from the Pittwater Network.
Thank you, Claire. And a Learning and Wellbeing Advisor from the Metropolitan North area of Sydney. What we're going to be New South Wales, pretty much, reflect policy and strategies across the state. And so it will be relevant to your specific area, regardless of where you're living. And it reflects a number of significant documents in disability and discrimination, and they are reflected in the Department of Education's Disability Strategy, which was released in 2019. I'll just start by mentioning that all children are required to attend school by the age of 6 years by law, and we'll touch a little bit on that tonight, but it is an expectation that children would start at the beginning of that year. It's advantageous to them be in school at the beginning of the year in which they turn 6, and some children even start a little bit younger than that. Thank you. Let's move on. Linda, to the next slide. I don't think
I have moved on. It just seems to be
Okay.
delayed. I'm
The
sorry.
Department of Education has a commitment. It's lagging. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, the Department of Education has a commitment to all of our children that every child is known, valued and cared for across all of our schools. We aspire to have a Department of Education system that reflects, that supports all children, and that our schools have an obligation to ensure that students with a disability and additional learning and support needs can participate in education on the same basis as their peers at every stage of their school life. We want all children to feel welcome and to participate to the fullest of their capability in a safe and supportive environment, and that we provide the expertise to ensure they're able to do that. And most importantly, school is about building friendships, given the opportunity to interact with other students and to feel that sense of belonging, and that this school is their safe place to be. Thank you.
The next slide is going to be about the private school programs when it comes up. So the Department of Education has a number of services that parents can apply for. And here they are. Okay, so the first one is the early intervention class, and that's for children with a confirmed disability, and they run out of a number of locations. I'll tell you those in just a minute. And they operate 2 to 3 days a week. They're by specialist educators, and the specialist educators also liaise with the child's preschool. So the application is submitted through your local school, and it's an access request process, which Jona's going to talk a little bit more about later on. So the locations for the early intervention client: Normanhurst West Public School and DY Public School and Annandale Public School. So once again, those are through access request. The early intervention resource support is where the teachers from the early intervention classes actually go out and support in the preschools, and they can provide learning and build the capacity of the teachers there to support children with needs. So the itinerant support teacher vision and the itinerant support teacher hearing are also accessed through the local school, and itinerant support teacher hearing is accessed from birth, and the itinerant support teacher vision is from the age of 3. There are support classes hearing. There are only a few of those, and they are also through the access request process through your local school. And it's obviously, it's for those students who meet the eligibility criteria for those. And they're from the age of 3. One is at Penhurst, I believe, and the other one is at Nawara, sorry, I have to pronounce that properly. Then we have our transition support teacher. We're actually there's a handout coming around, and there's a referral form for the transition support teacher early intervention. And our lovely Coralie Pratt, who is sitting in with us tonight, is our transition teacher. And and her service can be applied for through the local school or through the preschool as well. So there's a form in there that you can actually apply for her services, and she does actually come out and support at preschools and supports in transitioning to school.
Just unmute. Thank you, Claire. Claire's just referred to the handouts that will be, I believe, distributed after this session. So we've included a number of different things in the handouts, and we'll touch on those tonight. So the first thing will be that transition to school referral form. So your child's ready to start school, and how do you identify where your local school is? If you want to Google the Find a School website or just School Finder, the Department of Education has a school search where you just enter in your address. And so term 2, prior to the year that they're starting school, start to think about contacting your local school to enrol your child. If your child has additional learning needs or disability, please contact the principal of your local school and arrange to meet with them. Now, we understand that COVID has made significant changes to how people are meeting and greeting these days. Online meetings are frequently organised, and I believe probably later in the year, face-to-face meetings will be re-established. They're unlikely to occur, unfortunately, under the present circumstances. You need to complete an application to enrol your child in school, and I'll have a look at that on the next slide. The department provides a range of services and resources to support students who have additional learning and support needs. So we'll talk about how important it is to raise those, raise information with the school. The schools, the more information, and it was touched earlier by, I think it was Jane, the more information you can provide to your school, the better. Schools need information to be able to do the provide support the best possible way. If your child has a physical disability, and then the school may need to have some structural changes, for example, ramping or elevators, whatever is required to ensure contacting the school at least 2 years prior to commencing, because if there's significant works that need to be done at the school, we need time to do that. Thank you. The next slide. Okay, so this is what an enrolment form looks like. Many of you have probably enrolled your child online, and so you possibly haven't seen this lovely green form, but this is pretty much the standard enrolment form to enrol in any Department of Education school. And you'll notice that we've included down the bottom here the section G. This section refers to students with special circumstances and additional needs. So if your child has any special circumstances or additional needs, it's really helpful if you can provide information to the school. Things like behaviour support plans that may have been used in kindergarten or preschool successfully. Assessments and reports from your childhood health team, healthcare plans, emergency response plans. If your child has any specific medical needs, if they have allergies, if they have asthma, if they have anaphylaxis, please have those emergency response plans available to the school. And any adjustments that might have been made in prior to school programs. Bring that information in. It's also very helpful in supporting your child and getting the support in place for them ready for the start of school. Claire's going to talk now.
Yeah, I'm talking about what support is available, and I actually saw a question come up in the chat about what support's available for students with additional needs or if there are some gaps in learning. So all department schools have access to a range of resources to support students with additional learning and support needs. So students with additional needs are provided with personalised learning and support in a range of ways, according to what their needs are and in consultation with their parents. So this may include changes that teachers make to teaching and learning programs, access to specialist staff, which I'll talk about in the next slide, and additional assistance in the classroom from support staff, who are known as school learning and support officers. So professional learning is a commitment of the department, and there's a range of professional learning available to staff to build the capacity of teachers in respecting and responding to students with additional learning and support needs. The Integration Funding Support Program is for students with a confirmed disability who have moderate to high learning and support needs. And Shona's going to talk a little bit later on about that a bit more. And students who access the integrated funding support must have essential educational needs that are directly related to the identified disability, and their needs can't through the range of school and local resources. As mentioned before, the itinerant teacher support for vision and hearing are available to come out and meet schools, and every school has a learning and support teacher and access to the school counselling team. So the learning and support teacher works with classroom teachers and in the classroom to build skills in supporting students with additional learning and support needs. There are also support classes in mainstream schools for students with intellectual disabilities or physical disabilities, and there are also special schools. So those are applied for through access requests, which Shona is also going to talk about. Next slide, please. So we have a team that operates around a school as well, and it's access to other services and other professionals that work together to provide support for a school to support students. So Shona and myself are part of a learning and wellbeing team, and that's sitting there up the top. We've also got the assistant principals learning and support, and there are school psychologists, out-of-home care teachers. There's a whole range of teachers, and they all work together as a wraparound to best support students, and especially those with learning and support needs. Next slide, please.
Okay. Thank you, Claire. Here we go. Okay. So just in summarising what Claire's talked about, the integration funding support allows students who have additional needs and have a confirmed disability to have support in the classroom through either teacher or teacher aid time. And that's available for students from kindergarten all the way through to year 12 who are enrolled in mainstream classrooms. and they are applied for through your local school. They can even be, applications for integration funding support can be submitted already. Once your child is enrolled in school, the school can start preparing those applications now in preparation for the following, for the next year when your child actually attends school. So if your child's a disability and they're going to be enrolled in the mainstream, that may be something that vision teachers are also available. There is a criteria there. They must meet certain criteria that the assistant principal's hearing and vision will assess to determine how much support your child may be eligible for. Year 12 and itinerant from vision from years age 3 to mainstream schools. The support classes include classes for children with intellectual disability, mild, moderate or severe. We have classes for students with hearing impairment, for students with autism, and for students who have behaviour that is challenging. On all of those, the applications can be submitted from week 5 in term 3. So we've been considering applications for students for 2022 already at our placement panels. We've been referring to what's called the access request process. So if your child does have additional needs and you're seeking either integration funding support or to be considered for a support class or a special school, you still go straight to your local school for enrolment first, and your local school principal and learning and support team will submit what is called an access request. And an access request is basically a request for access to additional services. You're applying for a provision, you're not necessarily applying for a particular school, and the applications are based on the child's learning and support needs and what you as parents want for your child. Thank you.
Okay, just very quickly, because we're running out of time here. The transition to school statement is a way of communicating strengths and interests and learning styles and information from your preschool to your school. It's not a mandatory document, but it is very, very helpful for schools in planning support for students and getting to know them. And then the last few slides are really just going over planning transition to school. And we've already gone through that a lot with some of our other wonderful presenters. And then we have a roadmap for returning students to school. Shona?
Okay, yes, the Department of Education has laid out the return to school for this year. So kindergarten and year 1 students returning from the 25th of October. You can see there that from the 1st of November, years 2, 6 and 11 will be added. And then from the 8th of November, all students will be back at school. We haven't heard yet what the plans are for kindergarten orientations. So we're assuming that orientations will continue to be online until we hear otherwise. And schools are doing amazing things, and you'll have the opportunity to see just one of our schools in a few minutes talking about what they do to transition to orientate kindergarten students. Our next slide quickly. If you have more information, you can go to the New South Wales Department of Education website. There's just boundless information available for you as parents, so please do make use of that site. The question and answers, I believe you've been putting them into the chat, and Wendy Griffiths, thank you Wendy, has been answering some of them, and we'll have some general question and answer time at the end this evening. Thank you very much. If you want to contact us, there's a direct line across the state. You can dial 131 536 from anywhere in New South Wales. Or if you want to speak to either Claire or myself or any other members of the Macquarie Park team, you can dial us direct on 9886 7000. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shona. Thank you to all the participants for your patience. I really hope the internet has started to behave itself and we can continue with the presentation this evening. So our final presenters are going to be from Terry Hills Public School. We have Catherine and Adrienne presenting. So I'm going to hand over to these fabulous speakers to continue on the valuable information that's already been shared tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Look, welcome everyone. My name's Adrienne Bruce. I've got the great pleasure of being the principal of Terry Hills Primary School, and I've got with me tonight Catherine Wiles. But before we commence, both Catherine and I, we're actually coming to you from Garigal land. So if you don't know, and we actually pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal people joining us today. So you've heard lots and lots of information this evening. If you haven't actually gone into cognitive overload by now, it's quite an impressive body of information that you've had. And there's been lots and lots of talk about how we can work very, very hard to actually, to connect, succeed, and actually sort of enable our children to thrive in their and with their learning. At Terry Hills, like pretty much every single school in the New South Wales government is, okay, we have a mantra where we talk about that every student is known, valued and cared for. And at this particular point in time, this is actually very, very important. It's a really, really exciting time for you and your child, but it's also really, really probably an anxious time because you actually don't know what school's going to look like and how you can actually get in there and sort of and meet face to face with the teachers. Can I say to you, please do not feel daunted. There is no such thing as a silly question. I would encourage you when you actually sort of, contact your particular school, be it government, Catholic or independent, go and ask those questions and really, really, and just keep asking until you really, truly feel as if you've actually got the answer that you want to know. And we encourage that with all of our parents at Terry Hills. Yes, okay, there is actually at this point in time no explicit orientation plan. However, what we're working for at Terry Hills is we've got plan A, plan B and plan C. And the plan A one is that we actually are really, really hoping to have mums and dads and grandparents on site when their children start. But at the moment, we're actually anticipating that if we can sort of move ourselves into a point where parents can come in, children actually will come on in a bit of a staggered way through. And no doubt you're all actually used to doing this now in the world of with your preschools, the Service New South Wales app, QR code to actually, to bring your children through. So we actually will endeavour to do that, to actually get our children on. We actually will run 3 orientation sessions with our children to actually sort of, help them actually feel settled. But I would really, really implore you, if you have not done so, a lot of people have said, walk by your school, please contact your school, read the school newsletters, go to the website. In Terry Hill's case, we actually have a designated kindergarten website, and there's a part there where there's a Q&A. And my assistant principals, they actually will be answering those particular questions in terms of actually supporting you to actually make that transition through. We are doing lots and lots of work in terms of that Zoom virtual platform to support you and your child to actually feel really, really comfortable in that particular learning environment. It's all about building trust. And also that openness and that communication. And then what Kath's going to do now is that she's actually going to take on a bit of a journey in terms of, okay, as to what orientation sessions, this is the time when the children actually come in and they're actually into school. And so actually sort of see actually what it looks like. So, and then Kath will sort of talk about a whole range of things. So I'm going to hand over to you, Kath.
Thank you, Adrienne. I will... some things have been mentioned, so I won't spend too long on those, and I hope that you find what we've put together is helpful. Orientation sessions are really important for kindergarten students. As Adrienne said, we have our fingers and toes crossed that we will be able to run them on site with the children and coming into the classroom. These help build familiarity with the school, classroom and teachers. It also enables the classroom teachers to get to know your child, and they are very keen to get to know your child and that allows us to create a smooth transition for them. We will be updating parents, as will the department, on changes and what is happening. We did include a couple of websites on our previous slide to help you there. So orientation is where your child will probably get to meet a buddy. At Terry Hills, our kindergarten students are matched to a Year 6 buddy. The kindergarten students are very excited, but I would probably say the Year 6 students are even more excited than the kindies about this. They love nurturing and looking after their kindy buddies and supporting them. And the kindies love having a big buddy. So the core focus of kindergarten is that children are taught the rules and expectations of school, and this structure provides support for them in a nurturing environment, and children can thrive and achieve their full potential. And our aim at Terry Hills, as most educators are like this, is that we want children to have a love of learning for a lifetime. We want to be lifelong learners. So with the Department of Education, our key learning areas are broken into 6 areas: English, mathematics, science, creative and practical arts, history and geography, PDH and PE. Now, lots of schools offer additional programs. For example, at Terry Hills, we offer Italian, we have a specialised music teacher. That varies from school to school, and they will be able to give you that information when you enrol. So how do we support our children to transition to school and on this journey? Going to big school is a big deal, and it's important to remember that there is a large age difference in children starting school, and sometimes that can be more than 12 months. I did know in the chat people asked about support for their children or for gifted and talented children. Now, teachers are used to differing levels of abilities and needs in students. That's our job. Our job is to cater for all those levels, whether it be in a support capacity or for gifted and talented students. So the word, and someone mentioned jargon before, the jargon that we use for that is called differentiation. So teachers are trained and able to differentiate for a large variety of levels in the classroom. And again, people have said all night, make sure that you talk to the school, make sure you talk to the teacher. It's really important. So before school commences, there's orientation sessions, there's connections with preschools, there's buddy program which runs throughout kindergarten, and buddies go, extend beyond school at times. Ongoing through their schooling, there's differentiated learning programs, as I just said, with enrichment and learning support and wellbeing programs. As Adrian said, wellbeing is a very big focus because happy kids learn. Kids that are settled learn. So some considerations when you're wondering, and I know lots of parents find this quite difficult, is my child ready for big school? Some considerations for this include, do they have self-help care skills such as independent toileting, dressing, opening their lunch boxes, asking for assistance when needed, being able to play, and are their social skills good when they're interacting with other children and adults, because they will interact with a number of adults at school, and can they easily separate from you? It might sound silly, but some of these things are very important for the beginning of kindergarten. It helps them to feel independent going to school, and not being able to open a lunchbox can cause some children distress if they're not comfortable asking an adult for help. Teachers are wonderful. They'll open packets galore, do shoelaces, all those sorts of things, but it just makes your child's life easier and they feel better if they can do it themselves. So as mentioned before, practice all those things before school. If you have concerns about whether your child is ready for school, the best people to talk to are the preschool teachers or daycare teachers. They are in the best position to advise you, as they know your children better than what the staff at the school that your child is going to. However, having a chat to someone at your school, and that might be the assistant principal, it might be the principal, might be the counsellor, about if you've got any concerns is really important, because what you may be very worried about might not be as big an issue as you may think. So schools are used to dealing with a variety of needs, and our job is to take care of your children and look after them. So that's what we want to do. So how can you help your child transition? As mentioned before, lots of schools put out questionnaires about your child. You know your child the best, so you are in the best place to tell us what your child needs. If you have a concern that you don't really want to write down, as people have said before, contact the school, talk to the principal, and arrange a meeting. And that way you can address your concerns or let the school know information that is important. And it is very important because that enables us to meet your child's needs and do the very best for them. As said before, if you've got specialist reports, paediatricians' reports, please provide them and make an appointment. So how can you support your child's transition? As mentioned, look for the website for the school that you are anticipating your child will attend. There's lots of information there and they get updated regularly. Look for virtual school tours. Most schools will have a virtual school tour that you can have a look at, and that gives you an idea of what the school is like, even though you can't get on site at present. Look for information that can help you. We've put together this for as a handout for you tonight with the information we're covering. There's Getting Ready for Primary School. There's a picture book that you can read with your child, Daisy's First Day. And as I said, websites. Ask questions. As Adrian said, no question is a silly question. It's better to ask them because we are very happy to answer them for you. And most schools will have some sort of forum where you are able to do that. At Terry Hills, we do have something on our website for that. Other ways to support your child through transition. Draw pictures and ask your child to tell what they are looking forward to and any worries they may have about school. Provide them with assurances about school and that school is a safe place. Read stories about starting school. There's a variety of schools books that you can read. The more informed you are about your child starting school, the better for you. That will allow you to stay calm, and then that will also allow your child to be calm. That is really important. They need to have a positive attitude to go to school and be positive about it. They will have a great time once they are there. So that is important that you stay calm about it too, even though you might be a little bit anxious on the inside. So another way is being familiar and normalising school by visiting on weekends. That's already been talked about. Maybe if you need to, some children benefit from having pictures of key staff members and learning their name before they go to school. Adjust to the school time routine before school starts. Help them to recognise their name. Develop independence in opening and closing lunchboxes, separating from you, taking off and putting on school jumpers and hats. Recognising their name is important for when they've got to find their hat. Packing, unpacking and carrying their backpack and toileting. If you have any concerns in these areas, as I said, talk to the staff at the school that your child will be attending. Establish a rapport and relationship with your child through the orientation program. There's information that's made available Generally, there's a My School book, which will include a story about your child's journey as they start kindergarten. Oh, sorry. The school provides updates and messages via the school website. Some schools will send a letter from your child's Year 6 buddy. Contact and visit your child's preschool and school. We provide contact with the school counsellor, and we're available for meetings to discuss your child's specific needs. Please do not be afraid to contact schools to make an appointment. So day one generally looks like this. You make sure you have everything ready to go the night before so the morning is calm and settled. Even the most calm children, I know when my son started school, he was very calm about it, but there's still that excitement on that morning. So, and even for parents sometimes get a bit anxious, so it's good to have it all done the night before. Aim to arrive at school when the bell goes. Generally, schools will give you a starting time for your first day of school, and really importantly, take the time to take a first day of school photo of your child. So allow a little bit of extra time. When the start of the school bell goes, please say goodbye to your child, generally in the playground, or it may be in the classroom. That will depend on your school. Generally, it will be in the classroom. I know it's very hard to say goodbye if your child is a little bit unsettled, but your teacher and the support staff will look after your child, and it is important that you leave quickly because that will allow your child to settle more quickly, and it is definitely the best way, even though it can seem very difficult. And then just make sure you're aware of what time you need to pick up your child. And if there are alternate arrangements, it's really important that you let the school and your teacher know. So what do you pack on the first day of school? A school hat. Most schools have a no hat, no play policy, which means that if they haven't got their hat, they do have to play in the shade. So please make sure they have a hat. It's very important. A good tip is to have more than one hat because ultimately one hat will go missing at some point in time. Most schools will have a crunch and sip or a fruit break. It's called different things. So packing a little container of fruit, it might be cut up apple or grapes or something like that, that is easy for your child to access. Recess, which is morning tea, and lunch. Please make sure they're packed in separate containers and that your child can open them independently. As a parent, I know that when my child started school, gauging how much they eat can take a little bit of time. Some children will eat lots, some not so much. Generally at school, they are supervised eating. Another thing is to pack a pair spare of underwear and socks in case of an accident. And just popping those generally in the front of the bag in a plastic bag is a good thing to do. Questions that you might need to ask of your school. Who do I talk to if my child is anxious about school? Who do I talk to if my child doesn't want to come to school? How is the school going to support my child? Where do I pick up and drop off my child? How do I make an appointment with my child's teacher? How do I order uniforms? How many uniforms do I need? What about the sizes? How do I order from the canteen? Now, generally, all schools at Terry Hills, we cover this all in our parent information evening for parents, and they are given a wealth of information to follow. And you will find that all schools generally do that. But if there's something that you're not sure of, please ask.
Thanks, Kath. So it's actually giving you a very, very comprehensive overview of what what life would look like being an independent Catholic or even in a government school. So I thank you for your time this evening, and we wish you every success as you start your journey, with your child in their education.
And it is an exciting journey that you're about to go on.
Thank you all panelists for covering so many aspects of this transition to school process. Families, I hope you have gained some more knowledge and some more confidence on how you can seek support for your child throughout this process and what kind of support you can offer to your children. There is a wealth of support out there, so I really hope that that has come across to you this evening. Thank you, panelists, again for sharing all of that. Thank you, Rosemary, for helping with the jumping in and for managing the Q&A. It looks like there are still some questions that haven't been answered, but most of them have been addressed throughout the night. So if I could just quickly have a look at that, and panelists, please offer an answer if you feel that you can. One of the questions still there is there any support for a child with mild intellectual disability in a mainstream class? I believe that could have been addressed in terms of the support that schools can get for integrating a child with an additional needs in the class. Am I correct? Is there anything else the panelists would like to add there?
We did also talk about, sorry, Shana, we did also talk about learning and support teachers can greatly support and adjustments to learning. I didn't mention the age for support classes though, Shona. So support classes can be accessed, if that is the parent's choice, with a mild intellectual disability from the age of 8 or year 3. So
if a student has a mild intellectual disability, all schools are given what is called a RAM allocation, and that's an allocation of funds to support students with disabilities within their school. And there is a formula for working out the RAM allocation. I'm not even going to try and attempt to explain it. However, all schools get that funding, and so a child with a mild intellectual disability who's in the mainstream class would be supported through the resources available to the school. If they had additional needs, they could possibly be considered for integration funding support, but most students with a mild intellectual disability are supported very well through the learning and support team within the school and the adjustments that they will develop to ensure that they can access the curriculum on a fair and equitable basis.
Belinda, there was a question there that was actually raised about bullying.
Yes,
I think
there was a
very valid one. Is that, look, all schools have a student wellbeing policy. At Cherry Hills, we are very, very proactive. We're part of a PBL, so it's positive behaviour engagement for learning, and we talk about what our core values are of respect, responsibility, and learning. And we have lots and lots of programs, that one through there. But so it actually does talk about how children can manage, put down comments, someone who's actually sort of, making inappropriate gestures. So I would actually be encouraging you to listen to your child and then go and have that conversation back with your child's classroom teacher and talk about that. And then, because all schools actually, unfortunately, will engage in that particular area. So it's about having that conversation. I know I'll speak from a Terry Hills point of view, is that we run PBL classes for our parents to actually give them the language to enable them to actually able to support their child. The program that we actually run is actually Bounce Back, and it's actually sort of, giving them that common language. So it's that shared language between home and school. So I actually would be definitely encouraging you to listen to your child and definitely bring it back up to the school. In that regard through there. And even if your child says, I do not want anything said, I urge you, in fact, I implore you to actually go back and have that conversation with your school, because that's very important that your child actually feels reassured and safe in that school environment.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Adrienne. There is a question about the Better Start assessment being available for parents to have a look at.
I'm quite happy to talk to the Best Start assessment if you'd like. You don't need to have a look at it. It's done in a very friendly and nurturing way, and it's actually a lovely time for the teacher and your child to spend together. and to get to know each other. I know a lot of parents get anxious about, oh, what if my child doesn't know this, or do they know that? It doesn't matter to the teachers what they do know or don't know. That best start assessment is to give us some information so that we know where to cater for your child from. What can they do? We also use it to look at where do we need to start with these programs. Someone mentioned gifted and talented children. Some children are more adverse with their, more advanced with their English and their reading, and that's fine. And it just gives the teacher the information. I wouldn't make a big deal out of the best start with your child, because you can cause them to be anxious as well. They will go in and have a lovely time with their teacher and come out thinking they've done wonderfully well. And as I said, that will give the teacher time to bond with your child one-on-one, because they do it with their classroom teacher. So there isn't any need to go hunting it down and looking for it and getting them ready for it. That's not what it's about. It's about getting some information on your child so that the teacher can cater for their learning needs wherever they are.
Yeah, and that's the key point that Kath said. It's a point in time, and each child actually will respond differently. And we use that to it actually gives us baseline data in terms of actually be able to work with your particular child and move them through. So, but if you did want to go and find it, what I would just say to you is, okay, just go and Google Best Start, because that's what I've just done right now, and actually will take you to the Department of Education, website, in terms of it's just giving you that information just to reassure you that this is actually what it's all about. But it's a very, very good a good time for your child's teacher and child to connect.
And that will be spoken about at information evenings for parents about how it's done and when it's done.
Yeah. Okay. There is one question there about, we have decided that our child is actually it's too early. Mm-hmm. Once again, I would either go back and have a conversation back with your child's preschool teacher, and just be guided, because there's a lot of growth that actually ends up happening, and then you just have a look in terms of the overall readiness in that regard through there. Like each child is different. My daughter, she started school when she was 4 years, 9 months. But then we've got children who actually start school when they're 6. So be guided by your child, and also those elements through there.
And I've just noticed someone says they have spoken to the preschool and childcare and they're still undecided. So that's a good, you can talk to someone at the school that your child is going to, and that's what orientation sessions are for too, because it gives the teachers a chance to get to know your child and have a look at them. But talk to someone at the school if you've already spoken to someone at the preschool.
Yeah. And I think, and Shelley's has got a comment there. Is there any prep for the social side of the playground? I would be doing lots and lots of play. I think, Jane, you mentioned a lot of play-based therapies or activities. So I'd be having a look at all of those elements through there, and really, really encouraging play dates, with your child and with other children once we come out of, this period of being in lockdown. But I'll be looking at all of those elements through there. This is an atypical time for our children at the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to move through it. Once our vaccination rates increase in that regard.
Thank you very much. There is still a lot of questions coming up in both the Q&A and the chat. So I'm going to put my email in the chat so that for the participants, if there is any questions that haven't been answered or you're still unsure of, you can either contact the panelists or you can contact myself. We will be following up after the webinar this evening. There will be a handout going out summarising all of tonight's presentations, going out to all the participants this evening as well. So there can be some follow-up. I am going to try and run the poll, the final poll for tonight. And please also put in if there was anything that wasn't covered tonight and you thought it would be. Please put that into the chat too, because it's about growth for all of us and really knowing what families are needing in these times. So bear with me while I try and launch this poll again. So yes, there are 2 questions. And I am not touching the end poll button maybe until I get some feedback. And I see Rosemary has also put her email in the chat. So thank you very much for that, Rosemary. While you are answering the poll, again, thank you to the panelists for sharing your evening with us and sharing this valuable practical information. Thank you to Rosemary for helping. There were a lot of staff behind the scenes as well at Early Ed helping tonight get up and running. So I do want to acknowledge them. But families, thank you for joining us this evening, coming here tonight, putting your questions out there. And like it's been said time and time again tonight, no question is a silly question. Decisions, we're parents. Do we ever know the right decision? We will always question, was that, wasn't that, should I have, shouldn't I have? You can only do the best with what you have now. So ask around, as you've been advised to, sit with the information for a while, let it soak in, and make the decision. Are there any golden nuggets that the panelists can add on to that? Because I can feel some anxiety coming through for families.
I just think that as a family, you know when you go into a school, when you feel the warmth and welcome from a school, you'll know you're in the right place, because it's not just just your child who's going to be at that school for 6 years, it's you as well. So it really is about the partnership between you and the school. So trust, those instincts that you have, and just create a sense of openness and trust between you and the school personnel.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Rosemary, yes.
I was also just going to add on to what Sue was saying and just say that the decision that families make today is not the last decision that they're going to make about school. And so, nobody must feel that the decision they make is your child's life sentence. A new decision can be made at any stage in a child's schooling, and that can be a good thing. So the decision you make, in the next month will be good, the best decision you can make then, but you can change and you can make another decision at another time. So don't feel, like, oh my gosh, I've done it. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for often. Yeah.
And I think that was one of the comments made by a parent. How do you know when mum is ready? Can we do a presentation on that? That's all the best to you, families. Enjoy the journey, as challenging as it might be, as anxious as you might be feeling. Try and embrace this milestone, because it really is a milestone for you all. So on that note, I hope you all have a lovely evening, and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you and all the best.